So it's me on top of this mountain in the middle of a country that I don't know the language and I don't have a phone. Welcome back to Heroes Next Door. You know, you guys have been fantastic. I love all the comments. I love everything that's been going on. And I got another story that I want to tell you. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. At some point in your career, you're going to want to know, or if you can do a missions trip. So, you know, I was significantly into my career when I decided I wanted to do some kind of missions using my medical skills. I'd done a missions trip before that wasn't medical, was cool. Using the skills that we have to service people that normally do not have healthcare makes a world of difference. So I'm going to tell you a story about when I went over to Nepal. Probably one of the biggest life-changing events that I've ever had. And the reason for that is kind of how things went down. We got there, we had a PA with us, we had a nurse, we had myself, we had, I think, a pharmacist, if I remember right, and a whole bunch of support staff. We decided to hike the Himalayas and go to some communities that have never really had Western medicine before and offer, you know, healthcare as best we could. You know, we didn't know what we were getting into. We didn't know if we were going to be treating traumas, whether we were treating illnesses like earaches and flus, or what. So I really had no expectations going into this other than, can I use my skills? And how this was set up is we actually created clinics, if you will, in a couple of different towns that we traveled to. And we would hike to these towns. And once we get there, you know, we would set up, you know, the nurse, the doc, and myself, and we would just start bringing in people and asking, you know, what can we help them with? We've had everything from sexual dysfunction issues to major traumas that happened that we were able to treat or give guidance to. Things were going well. We went through one clinic with no issues. But when I was hiking to the next clinic, I personally ran into my own medical problems. I had enough water, but I didn't have enough salty snacks. And I ended up getting leg cramps really, really bad. We got up to about 10,800, I think is where we stopped, which is pretty high. I didn't have altitude sickness, but I definitely had cramps. And at that moment in time, I had to look upon myself and say, okay, can I continue on, or is this the end of my trip? Talking to our guide and figuring out what the plan is, because we had 2 more clinics to do. The one clinic was actually where we stopped, so that was good. So I got to finish at least 2 clinics. And the third clinic was actually on the way back down, but my group is going to go higher just to do some sightseeing. So I took it upon myself to make a decision to say, you know what, if you're just going to do sightseeing, that's okay. I would love to do that, but I am going to hold you back. And then, you know, you're going to have extra Sherpas to help us move gear and that kind of stuff. I took it upon myself in the middle of, you know, the Himalayas in a country that I don't know the language to stay in this little hostel, very nice little hostel. And what I did is I actually turned to my guide and said, look, why don't you leave some of your stuff behind? Leave some of your belongings behind. If you're coming back this way, you got to pick me back up. Leave the pharmacy behind. Leave those kind of things behind. So it's me on top of this mountain in the middle of a country that I don't know the language and I don't have a phone, basically in this little hostel until they come back. It was a 3-day trip for them, so I'm there by myself. And in that time, I was able to really make an impact on this community. I had people knocking on my doors at all hours of the day and night. I had one young lady come to me a couple times because she was having acne problems. So I kind of dealt with that. I had another one, it was a trauma, where the local bakery that was using a pressure cooker blew up and actually had an issue with it. So they came up and we took care of some of his burns and that kind of stuff. 2 of the biggest things that I had that were going on is I had a trekker that was actually from Germany, was making their way through. They were going up the mountain more, but this lady all of a sudden stopped peeing. She had severe abdominal cramping. Come to find out, after my assessment, is that she ended up having a pretty bad kidney stone, and she wasn't putting out any urine. This is the time where you really got to look at your medicine and figure out, how can I do this? What do I have in my pack to help this lady with this kidney stone out in the middle of absolutely nowhere? So I did all the tricks of the trade. I tried to have her pee laying on her side and laying down. I gave her a fluid bolus. We gave her some pain medications, and all those kind of tricks of the trade to get it done. But ultimately, you know, after a day and a half of her actually not putting any urine out, and the pain continuing to get worse, we ended up calling for a rescue aircraft. And we were able to call that aircraft in to get her off the mountain back to a hospital. But the other thing that happened, which I was not aware of, culture is different from here in the United States to other countries. The culture is different. What you're allowed to do and what you should do are completely different than what we can or do here. This was a pregnant lady. She was about to deliver. So I did our normal thing. We had to check. She was 9 months plus pregnant from what I could tell. My interpreter was a 12-year-old. So I checked her to make sure she wasn't actually bleeding and that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that, especially with not another man present. So I apologize for that, but it was an experience. And I didn't know that until my leader came back. You guys have the opportunity to do a missions trip, to really share some of those skills. I encourage you. Get a hold of a community, get a hold of a church or something like that, and use your skills to benefit other nations and other people besides here in America.